Thank you. Thank you. So this is a story that probably all of your parents will recognize. But I'm not a parent, and so I probably wasn't prepared for the experience. I've taught for over 2 decades, and I have known a lot of students in that time. But 4 years ago, I took a position as Don of the newest college house. That's a faculty head of our residential system. And for the first time, I got an inside look into those tumultuous first couple of weeks of college in which students face a volatile combination of freedom, peer pressure, and alcohol. The national statistics are startling enough. 2,000 alcohol-related deaths for students each year, another 600,000 injuries, and 100,000 alcohol-related sexual assaults. Only this time, I knew them. I knew the faces of these potential statistics. And I remember after that first week, feeling helpless. And so, the Friday before the second weekend, I wrote a plaintive email to them. I've now found out that not only do they not read emails, but they certainly don't read them on Friday. And it went something like this. Please be safe this weekend and recognize the power of your decisions. Well, I didn't have a word for it then, but what I was actually talking about is what I now refer to as social voice. Social voice is your interactions. It is your voice of everyday life. It is with your roommate in the hall. It is at parties and clubs and social organizations. It is on teams. It's in the community. It's in the workplace. And it is on social media. And at first glance, it doesn't seem like these interactions are all that significant. In fact, just recently, a student, not from this college, reacted to some fairly strong reactions to gratuitously demeaning comments he had made about another individual. And he said, people do say things. They just don't think about what they're saying when they say them. And I think he's probably actually pretty accurate. I have a feeling that if you were to do a survey of all forms of social media within a 1/2 hour of this comment that he made, you would probably find 1 million other comments from about 1 million other people that were equally demeaning. My suggestion today is that I think you might want to think about what you're saying, because what you're saying communicates what you value in yourself, and it communicates what you value in others. Social voice is nothing less than a communication of worth. So I say worth, and yet worth rarely seems to show up when we're thinking about social voice. In part, that is because our social interactions are so lubricated. We slide easily into the choices that we make, into the decisions that we make, taking leads from others, falling back on our own habits, adapting to roles and expectations, so that we come to understand our voice, we come to judge our voice by how nicely it blends with the other voices, by how little friction it actually causes. This connection between worth and social voice is made even more difficult by how our social interactions have become increasingly digitized. But by that, I mean that what you say is no longer connected to you. Whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, texts, yik yak, anonymous posts, there's probably 10 forms that I don't know about and 5 more being created as I speak right now. There's something that they all have in common. They are without any sort of ongoing context. They are episodic. They are without intonation. And most of all, they are without actual bodily presence. I'm reminded of something that my graduate school mentor said to me many, many years ago, some advice he gave me. He said, when you write about someone, imagine that they are sitting across the table from you. That is to say, they have a face, they have a body, and you are accountable to them for the words that you speak. How difficult it is to imagine that accountability when voice is transmitted in 140 characters, hastily typed and sent, anonymously posted and responded to. It is in this context, this ubiquity of social interactions, of different forms of social interactions, that something of a paradox emerges about social voice. Because it may be possible for your words to be everywhere and for your voice to be nowhere. That's because you're not born with a voice. You don't just decide to have a voice. And voice isn't simply the words that you speak without actually thinking. Voice is the connection of you to your words, right? And that connection requires that you know who you are and what it is that you actually value. And that takes work. That takes practice. That takes the practice of consciousness, commitment, and courage. So let's talk about each of these. So the practice of consciousness is your awareness of who you are, of what your choices look like, and what those choices might ultimately mean. In many ways, consciousness requires a stillness or a calmness of your mind amidst the busyness and noise that surrounds you. And you do have a lot of busyness and noise that surrounds you. Even as you sit here listening to this talk, you are connected by a fingertip to family and friends, photographs being downloaded, news feeds. You probably have calendars that are scheduled through this weekend, through next weekend. I know this to be true because I have tried to schedule meetings with you, and it is not easy. There is nothing wrong with busyness. I love being busy. I love being in contact with everything. I can't even imagine how I lived before I had a mobile phone. It seems so foreign to me. But it becomes a problem if you imagine that busyness somehow adds up to something, or if you feel that you are swept along in a flow that you no longer control. When is the last time you paused? I mean, experienced deliberate silence. Not the silence of sleep, but the silence of receptivity in which you suspend your judgments, you suspend the categories by which you observe the world and make sense of the world and respond to the world. And you just let yourself and that world be. Here's my suggestion. And I actually began this several years ago, responding to this spiral of busyness that ultimately just weighs you down. Take 5 minutes each day. You can take longer. Remove distractions. Suspend your to-do list and your what-if scenarios. Meditate. Go for a walk or a run. Work out. Do yoga. Or just pause and take in the details of life around you. Why is this so important? Quite simply because it releases the grip that all of that external noise has on your immediate sensations and your immediate reactions. It is a practice that is being used in everything from athletics to at-risk youth, and the aim is always the same. It is a practice at calming the mind, whether you are in the noisy crowd, attempting to make your free throw, which I am not going to show you my free throw because you would understand why I was a rebounder, or whether it is the persuasion of a friend when you are actually trying to make a healthy choice. Oh, it is so easy to simply recede back into the noise. It's so comfortable. And when you find yourself doing that, when you find yourself not able to hear your voice anymore, draw on this practice. Draw on this strength and feel the noise begin to slide away so that it is just you and your decision. So that's the practice of consciousness. It's the awareness of the present. It is where I am right now. The second practice of voice is the practice of purpose or of commitment. It is a sense of goals. It is a direction. It is a set of possibilities. So where do you want to go? Here's the funny thing about goals. If you don't have them, someone else will gladly fill their goals in for you, telling you what you should do or telling you what you can't do, regardless of whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. We do a very interesting exercise in our peer mentoring program. In the second semester of their first year, our students write a letter to themselves, and they talk about it with their peer mentors, in which they reflect on their first semester, and then they articulate a set of goals, and they talk about some concrete steps that they're going to take in order to move them toward their goals. There's something fascinating that happens in the act of actually articulating your goals. They change. And they change from things like, I want good grades, I want to have friends. By the way, those are good goals. To much deeper questions about meaning and worth and value. So I just happened to have a conversation a week or so ago with a student of mine, an advisee, and I said, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you seem different this semester. You seem comfortable and sort of self-possessed, and you're smiling. And she said, it's funny you say that, because one of the goals that I had written down for myself was that I wanted to be a happier person. I said, wow. It's not that she changed all of her activities. It's not that she changed everything that she was. It's that she made a decision about the energy that she had and what she wanted to devote that energy to. Because trust me, you have finite energy. And she had said, I want to be a happier person. This is true. This is what goals do. When you articulate goals, when you are clear about your goals, it becomes much easier to filter out the noise that distracts, or the noise that is just superfluous, or the noise that is positively harmful, even if that noise is coming from inside you. So one of the practices of voice is the practice of consciousness, an awareness of who I am. And the second practice of voice is the practice of commitment, of where I want to go, of what I want to be, of what goals I have. The third practice is the practice of courage. It's actually the practice of movement. It is the strength to actually take that first step, and then the step after that, and then the step after that, even as you suffer setbacks. Courage is the strength to appear before others as a distinctive you, not knowing for sure how that will be judged, not knowing for sure what that will mean. I have to tell you, I am fascinated by courage. I think because it seems almost to come from nowhere at times. I am amazed by the courage in which an individual will change his or her life or risk his or her life. And I am telling you, I am amazed as well by the courage of everyday life, because it's so hard to see. And that makes it sometimes very hard to do. I was talking to another student a couple days ago, and I asked her about how the transition was from the first semester to the second semester. And she said, And she told a story that I was hearing over and over again from other students. She said, when I got here, I didn't know who I was. And that's hard to figure out what to do at that point. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know how I was supposed to react. I didn't know what I was trying to aim to do. I didn't know what things were right and what things were wrong. And she said, but slowly, I begin to figure out things, right? I begin to feel certain things working and other things not working. And I would see it in other people as well. So that by the second semester, she said, I know what I want to accomplish now. I know what I want to do. Courage comes from a trust in your own worth. And I say trust very deliberately, because trust does not happen overnight. The story that she was telling was of slowly building trust in yourself. And that means that you have to look at it. You have to observe it. You have to pay attention to it. And you have to notice those moments of courage in others as well, no matter how small they may happen to be. Courage, the courage of everyday life, is the strength to walk into a party in which you are surrounded by your friends and people that you desperately want to accept you. And without drama, without fanfare, say, no, actually, I don't want a drink. Or, no, I don't want another drink. Or, I'm not comfortable with that. Courage is the strength to intervene when you see a friend or a roommate or a hallmate, or maybe even someone you don't know all that well, threatening the dignity and integrity of themselves or another person. Courage is the strength to say something when no one would notice if you said nothing. But to say nothing is to ultimately betray your worth. But here's the flip side. To say something, and remember the numbers that we talked about at the beginning, to say something can potentially change destinies. So I began by talking about my own anxiety and uncertainty about your voice. But that's not really where the story ends. Over the years, I have heard your voices emerge in moments of compassion and creativity, in moments of self-expression and self-discovery, and in moments of quiet assertion and extraordinary bravery. It is with voice that our authenticity as human beings is made possible. It is with voice that we actually appear before others, not as stereotypes, not as ideologies, not as anonymous postings, not as names that someone decides to call you, but as distinctive stories that give testimony to your worth. Stories that are as beautiful as they are imperfect. The stories you tell are the decisions that you make and the words that you speak. Let each of us tell a good story. You all are worth it. Thank you very much.